French far right made unprecedented gains after the first round of voting in snap parliamentary elections, with the National Rally now poised to be the dominant force in the National Assembly, though it's expected to fall short of winning a majority of the 577 seats. Well, according to projections by Ipsos Talent, the party and its allies won over 33% of votes, with the left-wing alliance, the new Popular Front, coming in second with 28%. President Emmanuel Macron's Together coalition trailing in third place with 20%, and the Republicans Party and other unaffiliated right-wing candidates receiving 10% of the votes, while unaffiliated centrist candidates scored 1.8%. Well, now we can bring in Clovis Casali from the National Rally headquarters. Clovis, the party then apparently just falling short of an absolute majority. We're not quite sure. Maybe they will make it significant gains nonetheless. What's the mood there?
Well, the heavyweights of the party, including Marine Le Pen, Jordan Bardella, will be coming here at the headquarters later this morning for a special meeting. Of course, they'll be carefully looking at results, seeing what to do in which constituency here in France, seeing if they are really going to get into power, and it does seem very likely they are at the gates of power. It seems they will get a strong majority, maybe not an outright majority, but a majority of seats in Parliament, and then it will be all about alliances. They finished first in many constituencies. They've already got around 40 MPs elected straight away in the first round of the parliamentary elections, including their historic leader, Marine Le Pen. Marine Le Pen in the Pas-de-Calais area in northern France, who said in her victory speech that the centrist bloc of Emmanuel Macron, of President Macron, has disappeared following these results. It's the end of Macron for her, and she's calling for national unity. She's calling basically for the French people to turn up in big numbers on Sunday in order to give the National Rally, the French far-right party, an outright majority to make sure that the French far-right is the dominant force, gets Jordan Bardella picked as a prime minister, and for her party to be able to pass laws freely in Parliament. Of course, we'll have to see what result they get on Sunday, but that's the idea for the National Rally. Call for national unity behind them, as they describe themselves as the only real patriots in France.
Right, Clovis, and as you mentioned, they're hoping to get a majority, but Jordan Bardella has said that he would not want to govern if the National Rally doesn't make the needed amount of seats for that majority. What can we expect then to happen?
Well, that's where it does get a bit technical. Remember, Éric Ciotti, the president of the mainstream, if you will, conservative party, Les Républicains, decided to form an alliance during the campaign with the National Rally. But not all of the LR, Les Républicains MPs or candidates decided to join him in that enterprise. But what will they do now? If some get elected from this conservative party, Les Républicains, will they decide in Parliament to join Jordan Bardella? Will they decide to join forces and therefore bring in numbers that would help the National Rally, the French far-right, get an outright majority in Parliament? Those Républicains seem to be the only potential allies for the French far-right, because take the left-wing. They won't join the far-right. The left-wing parties, France Unbowed, the Socialists, the Greens, the Communists, the new Popular Front, in other words, have already said, no way, we will never join the National Rally, of course. Furthermore, they're deciding in the three-way runoffs you were mentioning to call for any candidate who's standing against the National Rally. No vote should go to the National Rally. And that's actually the same message sent yesterday by Prime Minister Gabriel Attal. No vote should go to the National Rally. In other words, this Republican front that's been happening for years here in France has been revived in some ways. In other words, parties trying to prevent the National Rally, the French far-right, from getting into government.
All right, Clovis Casali, thank you very much for that update from National Rally headquarters. Well, let's get some more analysis now. We can bring in Dr Anna McKeever, who's a political scientist and lecturer in political science at the University of West Scotland. Dr McKeever, thank you very much for joining us. We've been talking a lot about the rise of the far right and the National Rally, and as it was previously known, the National Front has been steadily earning a higher share of votes in French elections over the past couple of decades. Do you think that this result that we've seen on Sunday was inevitable?
Thank you for having me. So yes, indeed, one outcome we can take from this election is that we cannot discount National Rally. It's no longer, kind of shameful decision to vote for such party, as we see according to the polls where they scored 33.4% and they got, as the first candidate in at least 270 constituencies. So I wouldn't say that it hasn't been unprecedented in terms of them getting more votes, but it is definitely unprecedented in terms of the share of the increase of such votes, because in 2022 legislative elections, their score was 18.7% and they got about 4 million of votes in legislative elections. And in this first round, as we've seen yesterday, they increased their share. They almost doubled it to 33 or just over 33%. Plus, if we translate it in a number of actual, people who voted for them, it's almost 12 million of French people. So on the one hand, yes, indeed, this is no surprise that they've managed to get more more votes from the French people, but the whole kind of share of this support is unprecedented, and it grew very, very fast.
All right, Anna Mckeever, do stay with us, don't go away. I just want to cross to our journalist who's on the ground at the new Popular Front headquarters, Liza Kamenov, the new Popular Front then coming in at second place in terms of share of the votes. Liza, what is the mood like where you are?
Well, it's a quiet morning here at the headquarters of France Unbowed, but we can say that here last night, France Unbowed's Jean-Luc Mélenchon was among the first leaders of the left-wing parties to speak after the results, after the new Popular Front gained just over 28% of the vote. And the mood was one of excitement and determination. Now, they are, of course, aware that despite being just 5 points behind the National Rally, they are still confident that they can close this gap between them and the far right. Yesterday, Jean-Luc Mélenchon was rallying up more voters, saying not one voice more, not one vote more for the National Rally. Let's aim for an absolute majority for the new Popular Front. Those were his words last night. And of course, his speech was then followed by reactions of the other party members of the new Popular Front, notably the Greens, Marine Tondelier, the Socialists, Olivier Faure, and Social Democrats, Raphael Glucksmann, who also said that this time, the second round of the election, it's not an election, it's a referendum. It's a clear yes or no to the extreme right. So they are aiming to galvanize as many people as possible to help catch up with the National Rally. Their aim is very clear: to block the far right from power, and their determination will carry it through this week. They said they have a long week ahead. At the moment, initial projections are saying that the new Popular Front have about 125 to 165 seats in the parliament, and with the National Rally projections saying they could secure between 230 and 280 seats. The fight is on. So that is their plan moving forward. They are not giving up. And just a few minutes from here on Place de la République, last night, huge crowds were gathering to listen to speeches of the left-wing party members who were once again rallying everyone up and saying, we can do this, we're not giving up.
Well, tell us a bit more then, Liza, about this strategy going into the second round. We've been talking about these three-way races and some candidates deciding to step aside to allow for more concentration of anti-far right votes. How is that going to work, and who's saying what?
So the new Popular Front laid out their strategy. It is clear, as you said, they have to block the far right, and they have called on all of their candidates who have come in third place in their respective constituencies and are facing a National Rally candidate who's in first place. They've called on them to withdraw from the second round. As you said, the idea is that the votes are not spread out across several left and centre party candidates. And the idea is for the candidates who are most likely to beat the National Rally to get all the votes. Now, latest figures are showing that the new Popular Front will be going through to the second round in 105 of such three-way runoffs. The latest estimates say that overall there are about 306 such three-way runoffs across the country. This is an incredibly high number. In some constituencies, there will be a four-way runoff, which means two members of the left-wing coalition will be going through to the second round. But of course, figures are likely to change. All parties, blocs have until tomorrow, the 2nd of July, to finalise and submit their new lists of candidates for the second round of the election this Sunday.
Right, Liz, and that's something that we will be keeping an eye on in the next few hours then, how those races shape up. Well, let's bring back political scientist Dr Anna McKeever on this. Talking about the left, it's struggled in the past to present a united front. And so is this what we're seeing now, the new Popular Front, just another example of a hastily cobbled together coalition? I mean, divisions still exist between these four parties. Can they present a united front?
Yeah, so absolutely. As highlighted by your colleague, we have seen last night Jean-Luc Mélenchon from the Unbowed Front saying that indeed where the left-wing coalition got the third seat in one constituency, they will stand their candidates down in order to present the Republican Front to block the rise of National Rally and block the National Rally from getting the majority of seats, or at least the overall majority of seats. Indeed, the coalition has been put very quickly, the new Front Populaire, but the fact that actually they've done much better in this election compared to NUPES in 2022. So they increased their share of votes by 3% from 25 in 2022 to 28 in 2024 legislative election in the first round. So we actually seen that this strong mobilization and resistance to the National Rally has benefited the left-wing coalition. So they've increased their share of seats. Also, of course, we need to think about the demise of the Macron's ensemble, the coalition of three parties of the center and right, which are actually not so united in their kind of response to forming the Republican Front. And there are some differences in terms of whether they should stand candidates down or whether they should not. So in this case, I would say that the left actually has done better, as we can see from the results, and they're more united in terms of forming that Republican Front in order to block Rassemblement National from getting absolute majority or getting more seats.
All right, Dr. Anna McKeever, I'm going to ask you to stand by, once more. You mentioned Macron's Ensemble coalition and his Renaissance Party. I want to get the reaction from our journalist Peter O'Brien, who's at the party headquarters this Monday. Peter, then, this a huge embarrassment for Macron after he called these snap elections just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's been a complete disaster. I mean, even those close to him, his inner circle, his party camp, were terrified about what would happen when he did call that surprise snap election on the 9th of June. We were hearing there about this three-way race, right? That's coming up next Sunday in 300 constituencies. That's a record number. And how Macron's coalition, you can't really call it that anymore. The message discipline is not there. Yes, the Prime Minister Gabriel Attal came out a couple hours after the results came in last night to say if we have a third place candidate, they will stand down. so that the Rassemblement National has less of a chance of winning the seat. But François Bayrou, the head of Modem, one part of the coalition, Edouard Philippe, head of Horizons, another part of the coalition, they've said, actually, we're going to be out to block both the Rassemblement National and the far left LFI, which is the main part of the left-wing bloc. So we're seeing there that there's this confusion and complete lack of message discipline from the what was the presidential majority in party in Parliament as to what to do in this three-way race. And obviously the more confusion there is, the more likely it's going to play into the hands of the far right.
All right, Peter O'Brien from the Renaissance Macron's party headquarters. Thank you very much. Well, bringing back Anna McKeever on that, I want to bounce back and talk about Macron's journey. I mean, he was elected in 2017 as kind of a maverick centrist, promising to reinvigorate France. What happened? Where did he go wrong?
I think it's not just the problem that Macron did go somewhere wrong. Indeed, he did, because if we look at the reforms that he has passed, for example, pension reform, he did resort to the Article 49.3 of the French Constitution, and he passed other legislation using that article. The article basically allows him to pass legislation without a vote in the National Assembly. So he's been pushing in through the legislation that he kind of wanted without having a proper vote in the National Assembly. So, and then of course we've seen the Gilets jaunes protests a couple of years ago. So Macron has been losing his popularity, but I don't think it's just because of his agenda and his positions, because incumbents tend to fare worse in the subsequent election or when they are governing in the office. So they tend to lose popularity over time because they have been passing unpopular policies, as we've seen in France with regards to pension, for example. He also resorted, to some other, he also resorted to the article to pass some other legislation. But I just think that we need to think more about how the voters perceive Macron as a political establishment, and that I think that he didn't do much for the left-wing voters. So I think that's why we're seeing this resurgence in the support for the left-wing Nouveau Front Populaire coalition, and that's why we're seeing kind of, the demise of his centrist bloc. And it's exactly as highlighted by your colleague, there is very little kind of discipline within this coalition, where different parties within the coalition do not agree on whether the candidates should or should not stand down, or whether they should adopt Nini strategy.
All right, then let's talk about Jordan Bardella, the 28-year-old who's slated to become Prime Minister if the National Rally gets a majority in Parliament. He says he doesn't want to govern if he doesn't have enough seats to have a majority. That's been the case for Macron's Renaissance Party. What would a hung parliament then mean for France?
Okay, so a hung parliament will mean cohabitation, so cohabitation with Macron as the president, so whatever 2 or 2.5 years is left. So if Rassemblement National and Bardella don't get enough seats to get the overall majority, I think what we need to look at is Éric Ciotti and his kind of group within the Republican kind of broken down party now, because they might be instrumental in giving Jordan Bardella and Rassemblement National that support that is needed. But of course, in any case, Rassemblement National will need to coexist with Macron as the president. And maybe Macron is thinking here long-term gain in terms of discrediting Rassemblement National by letting them into government for another year, for a couple of years, and actually showing voters that they're not credible in doing that. But we need to remember that Rassemblement National will rely very much, they are unlikely to get the overall majority, but again, it's very difficult to predict, but they will rely a lot on Éric Ciotti and that group from the Republicans Party in order to form potential coalition. I don't see, any other party, maybe some independent candidates, but I don't see any other party forming really a coalition with Rassemblement National if it is the case of the hung parliament.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see how all of this plays out. We'll, of course, be covering that here on France 24. Dr. Anna McKeever, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.